Joining me in our DC studio is Jonathan Broder, a Washington-based senior national security writer for Newsweek. He also spent 20 years as a foreign correspondent covering the Middle East, South Asia, and China. Jonathan, your biggest takeaway watching and listening to President Xi Jinping's speech?
I would say that there was a lot of expectation that, President Xi Jinping was going to perhaps give an indication that he might have been offering some concessions on the trade talks with the United States. None of that happened. If anything, he struck a defiant tone and gave no indication that that there was going to be any softening of the Chinese position as they try to work things out over the next 90 days.
He promised more openness, but did not really deliver any specifics when it comes to future reforms or any kind of new policy initiatives. Was that surprising, and what was the reaction among investors?
I think that you have to remember that he was speaking to a domestic audience. So it would make sense that he would strike a tougher tone. I think, though, that from what the initial reactions from the markets is that the markets were not happy with this.
You actually spent some time in China from 1982 to 1985 working for the Chicago Tribune. You went back to China for the first time last year, and you saw the dramatic transformation this country has gone through the last 40 years. Give us some of your observations. What went through your mind?
I was blown away. I mean, of course, I had heard about what was going on, but to actually see it. I mean, for example, when I lived in Beijing, there was one ring road around Beijing. Now there's 16. I remember to go from the center of Shanghai to the airport back when I was there, it took several hours to get there. Now there's a maglev train that rides above the tracks and gets you there. It goes, I think, 180 kilometers an hour and gets you there in 20 minutes. So there's been quite a bit of change.
Big changes.
Right.
And the changes haven't just been economically or I mean, you mentioned culturally, you know, designer stores in every corner, the bicycles replaced by very expensive cars. China has a big stake in the entertainment industry with blockbuster movies. So where do you see the country moving in the cultural arena in the next 10, 15 years?
Well, I think I see more of the same. I mean, as you said, when I was there, everybody rode on a bicycle. I was one of the few people, other than Chinese officials and diplomats, who had a car. When I went back this last year, I saw a pink Lamborghini. So I expect more of that. I mean, there are more people making money. The middle class is now growing and growing. Culturally, I think, and economically, the country is going to continue the way it's going.
Xi, in part of his speech, said China is the one which will be deciding its own future. There was a quote in there when he said, "No one is in a position to dictate to the Chinese people what should or should not be done." Did not mention the United States by name, but was that, in fact, a message to the United States?
Absolutely. I think at one point he even referred to people, critics on the outside as arrogant. That's another word that's used for the United States sometimes. Yeah, I mean, they're now going to be talks between the United States and China to try to resolve their trade differences over the next 90 days. But I think these are going to be tough negotiations. This is an indication this is not going to go easily.
All right, we shall see. Jonathan Broder, as always, thank you, sir.